Well, hello, Lightkeepers. I'm so glad you're here. I have such a very special guest today. Penny Chiasson spent 25 years in healthcare, including 15 as a nurse anesthesiologist, putting people under, then walked away to do work that creates lasting change at the subconscious level instead. She's now a board certified hypnotist, number one international best-selling author of Breaking the Fibro Code, and creator of the Identity Matrix. As founder of Elite HypnoPro, she trains high caliber practitioners to rewire the subconscious and engineer transformation that actually sticks. On the Soul Fusion podcast, she has the conversations most people are too polished to have. Real talk on identity, power, and becoming who you actually are underneath who you've learned to be. Now, I met Penny in Kathy Heller's community, and I can tell you right now, the work that she does is transformative and it's amazing. We did some of her court classes in the community and they were amazing. I honestly, Penny, I don't know where I went. You are amazing. You are a gifted soul. I was out there and then it was like, "Okay, everybody come back." I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to come back." My first question to you is you've always been a healer, it sounds like. Did you have that little special touch when you were younger or how did you get into healing? Did you have a calling?
Oh, that is a really good question. I've never been asked before, but first of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. I
Absolutely.
love to share because, I know there are things that I've experienced in life that, maybe it will give someone who's not sure that they can move through or overcome the belief that they can. So as a child, I have no idea. And I've often reflected back on this, just curious. But when I was small, I was really sick
Mm.
as a small child, and it was due to stress in the home.
Oh.
My parents actually divorced when I was 7, and one of the reasons was the doctor said that the tension between them is what was keeping me sick, and I was 38 pounds in the 2nd grade, and within a year, I was up to 70 pounds, so I was on track with my classmates, height and weight-wise, but I never really knew what I wanted to be, and that comes down to now I have been told I'm neurodivergent, so that's why I always had a lot of different ideas. I went through a phase where I had fighter jets pinned up on my wall when I was a teenager because I wanted to fly jets, because I just had this urge that I wanted to go fast and I wanted to fly, but to come back around to your point, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do.
Mm.
And I ended up in a relationship that wasn't very healthy. I didn't realize it at first. I kind of got sucked into it. And because I was trying to avoid my relationship ending up the way my parents did, I became tolerant of some things I probably shouldn't have been tolerant of, but I was too naive to know. And when that ended, I something that my mother had said to me, which goes to money mindset, which I've still sometimes see it perk up, and I'm like, "Ooh, you're getting into control over this." My mother used to say to me, "Don't ever depend on a man, financially. Don't ever depend on a man." And I had remembered in nursing, not in nursing school, in high school, I worked as a switchboard operator on the weekends, and I would do filing during the week in the local small hospital.
Mm.
And I would just go from office to office, whatever the ladies need doing, I just did scut work. And one of the ladies had said to me, she said, "You're really smart. You should go to nursing school. The nurse anesthetist here puts $2,000 a month into her savings account."
Mm.
And this was back in 1988, 1989. And I couldn't even fathom what $2,000 a month was, back then. So when this relationship ended, I thought, you know what? I am smart. I already have an associate's degree in science. So I applied to every nursing school in the state. And I went to the first one that accepted me. And it was a culture shock to me. I never had anyone in my family who was really sick like that. I didn't know what people really dealing with bad health looked like. So it was a culture shock to me. but I found that I had the heart and the passion
Mhm.
for helping others move out of pain
Mm.
in whatever capacity I could help them. So that's pretty much been a theme. And that just really put me on the path for knowing I wanted to become a nurse anesthetist. And it probably started a year after I got out of nursing school. I was working in ICU right out of school, and I started getting this urge, I have to get out of here. I have
Mm.
to get out of here. So I started looking for travel assignments. And I traveled to Connecticut, and on my very first travel assignment, I met my husband.
Mm.
And everyone, when it came time for the next assignment, I'm like, "You know what? I'm gonna extend the assignment one round. We'll see where where the relationship goes." And all of the other girls were like, "No, no, you're single, you're young. Go to Hawaii, go to Alaska, go to all the places and then come back." And I said, "No, no, no. If you've ever been treated like I've been treated in a relationship, when you find one like this, you're not gonna let it go." And fast forward 3 3 years, he was diagnosed with MS.
Oh.
And that really kind of put me on notice, okay, you need to go get the anesthesia. And so he had relapsing remitting MS. And I went to anesthesia school and I got that done. And then there's just a whole sequence of events. But I fell in love with taking care of people. And that had never been on my radar
That's
before I went to
amazing.
nursing school.
Talk about full circle and synchronicities, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was diagnosed 26 years ago. Yeah.
Yep. He was diagnosed in 1998.
I was 1999, May.
Yeah.
Yeah. That time was a really crazy time to be diagnosed. And they were saying how it was better because I was given 3 brochures. At the time when he was diagnosed, it might have been 2. And there was another drug coming up on the market. It was the ABCs. I did the C, which was the Copaxone,
Yeah.
because it was the smallest injectable, and you did it sub. How do you say that? Sub. You know.
Subcutaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. And the least amount of effects. I had friends who were on the. I think it was the one with the R, the Avenel. It was the one that was 1 shot a week, and
Yeah. That's
they
what
were
he did,
and
Avonex.
Avenex, and he was down, and they were down for 3.5 days.
Yeah.
Flew like it was a disaster. Yeah.
He was that way for a few years, but he didn't believe he could bring himself to do daily injections. He was a nurse,
Oh,
and he did
really?
his own injections for a while, and then one night he just couldn't do it. He's
Yeah.
like, "When you get home from work tonight, you have to do this." That was before I had gotten into anesthesia school. He's like, "When you get home, you have to do it because I've already reconstituted the medicine, so if I'm asleep, wake me up." You
Wow.
know? Um, yeah,
How did he do? How did he end up?
he has done well. He's on Ocrevus now. He only transitioned off of Avonex 2 years ago because
Oh,
he
wow.
never had another exacerbation. His doctors told him he was the most boring neuro patient they ever met. So he was afraid to change anything, and he did well because he never assumed the identity of someone who had MS.
Same.
We just didn't we didn't talk about it, and not from a denial perspective, and
Yeah.
it's interesting because that was his choice. He's like, "I don't want anybody to know. I don't want anybody's pity. I don't want people fussing over me. I don't want this to be what my life is about."
Interesting. I
You know?
actually I did identify for it. In fact, my daughter and I were the poster people. I introduced the whole new, I don't know if you remember, it was in 2007, I believe, when they did the whole rebranding. My daughter and I were the poster people. I introduced the whole new campaign in Orlando, Florida. Do you remember
Yeah.
that with
I don't remember that. We didn't
the
follow it a
whole
whole lot, but
branding? Yeah.
what I did was I had the largest MS walk team in Hartford, Connecticut when they would do the walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because when he was diagnosed, I mean, I was just shell shocked for a whole lot of reasons. I carried a lot of stories, and it was literally my soul saying, "We're going to show you. You said you couldn't, but we're going to show you you can." And
Wow.
I found out there were so many people I worked with, from physicians to physician assistants to other nurses, who were working around me who had been diagnosed, and
Wow.
no one knew. So we got a pretty large team together, but my goal, I knew from the research that I did what was available at that time in the early 2000s was that the thing that would make a difference was him being able to rest when he needed to rest,
Yeah.
and so he could be active when he wanted to be active. So my goal was to get through anesthesia school so that he could go part-time, and he could work more if he wanted to, but he didn't have to.
So was the anesthesia school, was it because it was more pay and more flexible?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. I just don't
Yeah,
know. Okay.
yeah, yes.
Significantly, like
It's
3 times.
significantly more, and it was just different, right? So things were
Yeah.
starting to change in healthcare way back then.
Oh, yeah.
And just a few weeks before I actually entered into the program, I had a night where I was working with a one-on-one patient who was on we'll call it continuous dialysis. There's different words for it. Just like a continuous dialysis machine, very critically ill, was on 15 different medications in
Mm.
addition to all the dialysis strips, and we were so short-staffed, they assigned me another patient who was on the exact same therapy because they were in the room next door and I could open the curtains and watch through the window. They weren't as critically ill, but that therapy required every hour. There was a whole list of things I had to do every hour for both patients. So for 4 hours, I was doubled up because we were short staffed. And I'm, my boss said to me, she goes, "You really don't want to go into anesthesia." She goes, "It's just as political over there." I said, "In anesthesia, they can't make me take care of more than one patient at a time. And that one person gets my full attention."
Yeah.
And so that's where my integrity and my values lie, is that strong sense. I don't want to say of social justice, but that strong sense of doing the right thing.
Mm. Well, it's interesting because, we've talked, and my podcast is all about getting through the storm. And how did you get through the storm? What helped you get through the storm with your husband's diagnosis of MS?
Well,
Like,
it took, well,
where'd you find that
it,
inner light?
at the time, I didn't know anything about inner light.
Right.
I really didn't. It was
Oh,
about
and
keeping
yeah,
my kids together and
yeah,
keeping me together, and I just had to work through the fear and get past the fear that the other shoe was gonna drop,
yeah,
because you would hear about people that they would just wake up one day and their vision would be gone.
yeah.
I was the only person who knew other than him. So
Right.
finally, at one point, I said, "Can we at least tell your sister so
Oh,
that if something happens one day and, like, say you wake up, you're having an exacerbation," and I call her and I say, "Look, I need you to watch the kids. I need to take care of Ron." At least somebody knows, and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm busy today," or whatever. Like,
mm.
somebody can understand, like, what's happening.
That's such a
Um,
heavy burden to carry.
yeah, and so he did, and we told his sister, told his mom, and then, of course, the next week, he's getting messages for people, "We're praying for you. We have you on the prayer list," because they went and told everybody at church, even
Mhm.
though he didn't want anybody to know, but people pretty much just kinda let it be. In fact,
Mm.
a few weeks ago at the hospital here in Mississippi, he was working night shift, and someone said something, he started talking about his infusion, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I have MS," and they're all just looking at him, they're like, "Wait a minute. You are farming 40 to 60 hours a week. You come in here and you work a couple of shifts, like, what do you mean? You like, we would never guess." And he said, "Well, I look busy, but when I need to take it easy, I need to take it easy. When it's hot outside, I'm inside." He said, "Most of the work I do around the farm, I do after it gets dark at night."
Penny,
You know?
this is amazing because we're talking 27 years and he's a male. So when men get multiple sclerosis, they get hit so much harder than women. I know many men when I was first diagnosed and then through my whole series of it, and they always went down so much faster. And a lot of them retired early. A lot of them did not work.
Well, he was fortunately in a profession of nursing where he could cut his hours and cut back and
Yeah.
still make good money, and thank God he didn't have the hang up of feeling guilty that I was making more money. He nicknamed me Scrubbing Bubbles because I worked hard, so he didn't have
Oh my
to.
goodness.
But
Well, wow, that's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that and opening up. That's really wild. And it's interesting when we are in a storm and you say, well, I didn't know light or inner light or this and that. There is this deep resolve that a lot of times we do dig deep down. And it could have been because it sounds like in your childhood, you're very empathetic
I'm an
and
empath for sure.
you're an empath and you're a healer and you loved him dearly and deeply. And so you just said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to
I,
do it.
I remember in nursing school, talk about the divine and how things just line up. I remember in nursing school, I took care of one person who had MS, and it's not that common here in the South. And this person was in a nursing home
Mm,
because they were progressive.
yeah.
And I said to a friend of mine, I said, there are two things I'll never do. I'll never marry someone who's been married and has kids from another marriage. And I'll never be able to take care of someone with chronic illness. Wouldn't you know, I married a man with 2 children. First marriage. And it's like I said never, and the universe said, let me show you.
I'm going to test you, right? Careful what
Yep,
you say.
you're
Careful
stronger
what
than
you
you think you
say.
are. You're stronger than you think you are. You're powerful
Yeah.
little things.
Yeah. Well, not to go deep, but yeah, I met a gentleman. I was pretty newly diagnosed and he was in a home and it was pretty intense, to just put it
Yeah.
lightly. He was primary progressive and he was young and he was only into the diagnosis like 2 years or something like that. But I did a deep dive. I learned everything and anything about the disease because I wanted to be empowered and I didn't want to run away from it. So I went to all the dinners by the drug companies, right?
Yeah.
And we did fundraising for everything. We were always the top fundraisers. We did all of it.
Nice.
And yeah,
Important
I
work.
mean, it was beautiful. But I know what you're talking about, the identity. I did identify with it. But I also said, I'm going to do everything in my power to not have it. In fact, somebody had told me, I love this saying, I have MS, MS doesn't have me.
Yeah.
And that was just always talk about subconscious. That was my subconscious, which is a nice little entree to what shook you. So you said, okay, no more nursing for me. I'm going to go to the subconscious, which is amazing.
It wasn't that direct of a line.
Okay.
So as a nurse anesthetist, I was in Eastern Connecticut at a hospital called William W. Backus Hospital. And occasionally we would have these patients come into the OR and they
Mm.
would have a piece of paper,
Oh.
safety pin to their hospital gown. And it would say, "Dear anesthesia provider, please read these 3 statements to me 5 times as I go to sleep and 5 times when I'm waking up." And those patients would take less anesthetic, less pain medication, and they would wake up just as comfortable, if not more so, than the other patients. And then one day they're supposed to be bringing my patient back and they're not coming. I'm like, what's the holdup? They're like, oh, they just got here for the healing touch. And I'm like, healing touch? Like, what's... So I started investigating what's going on over at this cheese center and found out they had a Reiki class. Had no clue what Reiki was. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. So I signed up for Reiki 1 and 2 one weekend. And this is what I was laughing about when we were chatting before you hit record. Um, after she had done the Reiki 1 attunement and the day that we're starting the Reiki 2, we're all sitting in a circle and the instructor is holding my left hand with her right and we're holding hands around. She said, okay, Penny, now send energy around to the person next to you and just send the energy all the way around the circle. I'm sitting there and I'm like looking and everybody else has had Reiki. They love it. And she goes, are you doing it? And I'm like, I don't know. And in my head, I'm going, what the hell is this woman talking about? Sending energy. But eventually I got it. I love Reiki. And so that kind of opened my mind to something other than.
Mm.
And then there was something that happened in the hospital, and I realized there was an opportunity for me to take everything I learned about pain management as a nurse anesthetist and create something for the nurses in the hospital to give them a layer deeper around pain medications and pain management than what you get in nursing school. But it was critical information that would help nurses to provide an even better level of care in
Mm.
pain management and lower the risk of instances of people getting too much pain medication, being too sleepy, and having adverse events. And when I was doing the research for that, or the literature review, that was because I'm not a researcher, that was where I found this entire body of research, legitimate research on hypnosis for pain management. And I remember reading one of the articles and thinking, what do you mean
Mm.
that teaching someone hypnosis before they have their ribs sliced to have
Mm.
lung surgery, that their pain management is just as effective and in some cases better than someone who has an epidural? Like, what do
Yeah.
you mean? And none of the side effects. So that rolled around in my head. And over the years, it wouldn't leave me alone. And periodically, in New England, we have this newspaper called the Hartford Advocate. It's kind of like the community newspapers or magazines that would get published around the cities. And I would pick one up and I would look through there and you would see an occasional hypnosis certification, but it would be by someone who was into the woo,
Mm.
very spiritual. I wanted to understand, how is this working for pain? So in 2012, I came across a training that was given by Ron Esslinger. He transitioned a year ago this past Christmas, but he was known in the hypnosis world as the king of pain. And he
Mm.
was a retired nurse anesthetist. He had a course. So I signed up for the course to get anesthesia credits because it was accredited to get continuing education. And on the 5th day of that class, he voluntold me to come to the front of the class when he was demonstrating what's called glove analgesia. And that's where, through hypnosis and the power of suggestion, you numb a body part.
Wow.
And I knew what he was going to do because I had seen the video on his website. I knew what he was going to do. So I had to psych myself out. I'm like, the man knows what he's doing. Just follow his instructions and you're going to be fine. So he guided me into hypnosis. And once he had me sufficiently numbed, he was pinching the back of my hand to make sure what he was saying was right. He took a surgical clamp, and this is one of those clamps. It's got little teeth in it.
Mm.
And he snapped it tight on the back of my hand, pinching my skin on the back of my hand. I didn't feel a thing,
Wow.
not a thing. And I had the teeth marks from the clamp on the back of my hand for 2.5 hours. All the other nurse anesthetists in the room, they're like, oh my God, let me look. That didn't hurt. And I'm like, I didn't feel a thing. I knew what he was going to do, but I didn't feel a thing. And I walked out of class that day and I called my husband. I said, when I come home, I'm opening a part-time hypnosis practice
Good for
because
you.
I expected it would be my retirement plan. I was starting the practice so I wouldn't forget what I had learned.
Wow.
But fast forward a few years and quite a bit of challenges, I ended up going full time. But you talked about finding the light, and it was before that had happened, after I had learned Reiki, I was out in my garden one day and I was weeding. I'm in the zone. And now I know, like, I was in hypnosis, I was in theta. And you mentioned earlier about being going, if we get deep enough into theta, it doesn't matter if it's hypnosis, if it's prayer, if it's meditation, you get deep enough, and it's the gateway to our soul. It's the gateway to that consciousness. And so my opinions around hypnosis the last 5 years have really changed a lot. And we can talk about that later if you want to. But I'm sitting there weeding. My garden had this beautiful little cottage flower garden in front of a little Victorian farmhouse. And I hear this voice, and it said, pull the weeds out of your life.
Mm.
Pull the weeds out of your life. And it's the first time it had ever happened. And just silently to myself, I said, who is this?
Mm.
And it was Archangel Michael.
Oh, wow.
And then
Really?
It's never come back to me, not in that way and not in that way that I was aware like that. But I remember thinking, okay. And I thought about it a little bit later. I'm like, could it have really been? I'm like, well, if it was something that didn't, if it was something that had bad intent, it wouldn't have told me to pull the weeds out of my life.
Mm.
So I just kind of let it be. But once I became certified in hypnosis during that time, my stepmom was very ill. My dad had Alzheimer's.
Mm.
And I literally left that certification training to come here to Mississippi to be here with her because she was having a procedure done. And when I went back to Connecticut, I've got her on my mind. I've got him on my mind. Can I get a job in Mississippi, get credentialed and move? And I have this burning desire to start this hypnosis practice that will not leave me alone. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then finally one day I was just like, you know what, God, you open the door. I'll just walk through it. You just show me the way, open the door, and I'll walk through. And for the next 2 years, with my stepmom declining in her health and having a sudden death, come to find out what she died from was hypothyroidism, even though she was diagnosed with hypothyroidism and was on a medication. Her doctor wasn't checking her levels.
Oh,
And I assumed that they were.
yeah.
So I never questioned that. That is just such a basic
Mm.
level of care for someone who's sick and they're on thyroid, that
Mm.
you make sure those levels are up there. And so I never asked. So I carried a little bit of guilt around that. I was dealing with my dad. I couldn't be here to take care of him. And that was another thing that I had to trust, that I could not control the outcome. I had to surrender to the idea that I could control what that looked like. And I had a friend who was a retired nurse that she coordinated all of his care so he could stay in his home, which is where I am right now, and not have to be put someplace. But it was just surrender, surrender. And with all of that happening, my hypnosis practice grew to the point that I cut my anesthesia hours by half
Wow. That's
in that 2
amazing.
years. And then I closed my practice, we picked up, and we moved to Mississippi. That was in May of 2015.
So you've been in Mississippi since 2015.
Yeah.
Wow. And full time doing the hypnosis since 2015? No. Okay.
No, no, I didn't believe that Mississippi would be open-minded enough.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I found an anesthesia job that was 2 hours away. I had to commute 2 hours, or I stayed with my aunt. Very crazy schedule at that hospital. I did rotating call. You never knew what time you were gonna get off from one day to the next. It's just the way the anesthesia coverage was set up there. So, resuming a hypnosis practice was just out of the question. And then it was just eating at me. I was so out of alignment.
Mm.
Like, I loved giving anesthesia, but I was so out of alignment. I don't like mediocrity. I don't like it when, um, financial and profit
Mm.
constraints, because that was a for-profit hospital. I
Yeah.
don't like it when profit constraints don't allow you to give the level of care the patient needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, just give the baseline minimum. That's not how Penny rolls. So the stress, the lack of grieving appropriately with both parents, some things that happened during that time that were just really inappropriate, but I felt it wasn't appropriate for me to address them in the moment with the way everything was. I spiritually bypassed all of that.
Mm.
And, that's just something that you would hear growing up. You would be talking about a challenge and somebody say, "Oh, well, you should be grateful that."
Yeah.
So I spiritually bypassed it. I stuffed it down. So when you took the grief, when you took what ended up becoming festering anger,
Mm.
plus the guilt that I felt around having to take the truck keys away from my dad. He was an avid hunter. I had to take his
Right.
guns away.
Yeah.
All of those things, because I had to think about everyone else's safety, not just how he felt.
Mm.
All of that stuff got pushed down. And now I'm in a job where I can't do my best for a patient or what's best for the patient and I'm missing the one thing that I realized I was put on this earth to do, that festered. And I started to realize I have to get out of here. That theme again, I have to get out of here. And I ended up finding a job where I could work 3 13-hour shifts. And then that gave me the spaciousness to begin to rebuild a practice. But when I went into the place, I was not prepared for the level of toxicity
Mhm.
when I went in. And when I say toxicity, I don't mean people being bad people. I mean, there were a lot of politics and a lot of dynamics. People were unhappy. They were disgruntled. And lo and behold, menopause landed on top of me like a ton of bricks. Talk about a perfect storm and the light in the storm. I had forgotten. I was so busy. I had forgotten to take care of myself with what I had learned about hypnosis.
Mm.
And one day I was just screaming, hit the wall at 100 miles an hour. And in probably 2.5 to 3 hours of me holding it together, I just looked like a very busy person. I know now I had high functioning anxiety and depression.
Mm.
I was
Yeah.
busy holding it all together, and then once the cork popped out of the champagne bottle, there was no putting it back in. I was suicidal within 3 hours.
Oh my
And I don't
goodness.
mean thinking I don't wanna be here anymore. I mean, sitting in the parking garage at the hospital, knowing that if I walked into the actual operating room, I wouldn't walk out alive.
Wow.
And everybody I called was busy, nobody was answering their phone, and that's no fault of theirs. They didn't expect Penny to lose her ish that day. And I called my nurse practitioner, and her secretary answered the phone, and she goes, "She's not available right now. She'll call you till tomorrow." I said, "I don't have till tomorrow. I've got
Oh,
right now." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I told her, and they were just on it. And my nurse practitioner knew my anesthesia chief, and I got myself some help because I didn't trust myself to drive home that day. But through that, it brought me back to the hypnosis in a way that I was doing the self-hypnosis, that is a mind, body, spirit self-hypnosis. I connected with my mentor, and in 3 sessions, we cleared all the static because we in the process that happened, we recognized that it was I recognized there's anger. There's anger buried here. I have to get it out, and I wanna do it and be done with it, and I knew he knew how to do that. So, it was just like a clean slate and a totally new person from that day, and I rely on that knowing that we have inside of us what we need.
mm,
Sometimes we can't access it ourselves. And when I went into hypnosis, it was all about helping people with pain and to lose weight and to stop smoking and IBS and be more compliant when they were trying to be compliant, but for whatever reason they weren't.
mm,
And I walked out of that experience saying, "You know what? If I had just remembered what I knew and I had been doing my self-care with what I knew, if I had been practicing my self-hypnosis every day, and I had just learned it in May of 2015, that particular technique, and I moved and I got busy, I never built the habit. But if I had taken the time to build that habit, I know absolutely without a doubt I never would have had that moment that November 2017. But without that moment in November 2017, I wouldn't be here right now
exactly.
talking to you, and I wouldn't be helping people at the level I do with identity work because that is really what runs our life.
Yeah.
It is our identity, and our identity is something that's given to us in this 3D world.
Yeah. So
But
true.
who we really are underneath the surface is our authenticity. And
Yeah.
that's that light that,
Yeah.
that you were talking about. Like, what's that light that pulled you through? So my authenticity was coming through, and that is what has guided me to this point. And I just remember thinking, if I can keep even one person from ever making it so far down the path that I did, if I can help people recognize, if you got a little anger, let's work on that. Let's clear that out. Don't let it get to the point that you're completely losing yourself, then I've done my job.
Yeah. Where it's completely irreversible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've worked with a somatic coach, and we go to the subconscious and reprogram it. And that's probably been, no, it has been the most profound of my healing journey the last 18 months. And, you can do the diet, you can do the exercise, but really it is, this mind is, you got to quiet it down, you got to reprogram the story. And the stories, yes, they're from when you're 5, 6, 7, but also the stories are when you're 25, 26, 27, 47, 60. And it's just a miscommunication. It's a misunderstanding. And it's going in there. But when there's all those different messages going on, Penny, I can really understand why you got to that point, because you had a pretty full life of a lot of stuff coming at you. And it seems like it now, but just to give you the permission for the grace of how far you've come and to not revisit that. But I know you've done the work, because that's a lot. That's a whole lot. And like you said, if you wouldn't have gotten to that point, I mean, what a beautiful bright light, and how many people you help. And the empathy is just deep, and you can understand, and you can probably foresee it. And you can talk to one of your clients and say, this is what I'm seeing. This is the thread. This is the pattern. Let's go deep. And it's not always, we always think it's weight or it's money. Some of the things that are, and I hate to say simple and belittle it, but maybe you can tell us some of the examples, obviously without the name, but some that stick out to you that were so profound, and they weren't necessarily violent, that you assisted some of your clients in reprogramming.
Mm.
Does that
There
make
yeah, there are so
many?
many. One of the things that really touched me, I can say her name, client Justina, she's been on my podcast.
Mm,
She wanted to be more she wanted to have deeper connection in her relationship, and she knew that there were some things going on with herself that if she cleared those, that she could have a deeper connection in her relationship. That's what she really wanted. So, we set about the process. And, there are things in all of our lives that happen that are beyond our controls. Our parents do their best or whatever. But she was carrying some anger, some frustration, some resentment, not to the degree that I was. But she and I did that same release session that my mentor did with me. And she messaged me a few hours after that session. At the time, she had a 3-year-old and she had a baby. And she messaged me and she said, for the first time ever, I'm not going to say his name, my 3-year-old ran to me, jumped into my arms, hugged me, and said,
mm,
I love you, mommy.
oh,
He had never told her he loved her.
mm,
And he was not a touch type of affectionate child. He just
yeah.
didn't give hugs. He did. So her whole energy had shifted
Mm,
in that process. So that was one. And then there was another woman that came to me for confidence. She just wanted more confidence to be a better mother. She had a preteen daughter. And I talk about her a little bit. Her pseudonym is Stormy in my book, Breaking the Fibro Code. And she just wanted to be more confident. She wanted to show up better. She knew
mm,
she wasn't showing up as the mother that she could be. And we went through a few sessions. And when she came to me, she was 40 and she was on disability for bilateral bone on bone arthritis in the knees, is what they told her she had, using a walking stick, fair amount of pain. After the forgiveness work, and we did 2 sessions with her for what she was dealing with, and it was just life circumstances, like, nobody did anything to her. It's just sometimes our parents grow up in life circumstances, we grow up in those life circumstances where we don't understand why our parents made the decisions that they made, and they actually make decisions, in her case, Her mother actually made decisions that were in her best interest. But as a child, she couldn't see that. She couldn't understand
Hmm.
why her mother didn't do things differently. When she came in for that next session, she comes walking in, no walking stick. She's walking perfectly normal. I'm like, what is going on here? And she goes, I'm like, where's the pity stick? That's what she nicknamed it. I'm like, where's the pity stick? She goes, I don't need it anymore. She goes, since we started this work, I've lost 10 pounds. I'm walking and my pain is gone. And a couple of years ago, she and I connected briefly. She lost 100 pounds after those sessions.
How many
And we
sessions?
didn't work on weight.
Wow.
We worked on confidence, but she was carrying a burden.
Hmm.
And so her body was carrying that burden. But sometimes it's just really simple little misperceptions that people pick up, just about all kinds of different little things. I mean, I could go on. I have this knack for being able to remember all the ones that stand out to me.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. So with the hypnosis, when I did it with you in the that was like one of the first times I'd ever done it. And I remember there were people kind of a little afraid. They're like, oh, I don't know. There's a sense of losing control. There's
Yeah,
a sense of, what are they going to make me do? Because we've all
yeah.
seen some scary movies. Can you maybe talk a little bit about hypnosis and
Yeah.
also what is there and what is the difference between that and meditation?
Oh, yeah. Great questions. So hypnosis is nothing more than a state of focused attention.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
literally just focusing your mind.
Okay.
And when you're in that state of focused attention, what you're doing is you're taking your brain out of fight or flight, you're taking it out of that beta state, and your body can actually begin to relax because your mind is not thinking about everything else. So it's a state of focused attention. Now, with hypnosis, it's a state of focused attention with the intention of allowing yourself to accept suggestions to change beliefs, habits, and behaviors that you want to change. Now, you mentioned people being afraid of what someone's going to say to them. What I typically say to that is find a hypnotist that you trust.
Mm.
Find someone that you feel really good rapport with, and you can ask them exactly what to expect during a session. Now, some people rely completely on scripts where it's pre-written and they'll go through it. The identity matrix method, I create the new matrix from what the client tells me.
Mm.
So the client already knows what I'm going to say to them in some variation because I love to have their words, their phrases, their emotions. And a lot of times I will run into people who don't know what it is that they want. And
Right.
that's okay. Sometimes we've been living our life so long to the way we've been told we should live it that we've forgotten what we want and who we are. And so there's a starting place with that. But find someone that you trust when you do that. In terms of being stuck out, under, unaware, most of those things are just Hollywood myths. It's all about the story. And I have more than one opinion about that, which
Mm.
I can share. I have a whole theory behind why it's portrayed that way. What I will say is if you've ever been to a stage hypnosis show and you see people pretending to put on suntan lotion and they're doing the moonwalk and all the different things, those people volunteered to go on stage.
Good to know.
They knew they were going to be doing something wild and crazy. So they were giving consent.
Hmm.
And I have to find the specific article. I came across something the other day. The British Journal of Psychiatry in recent years has actually published research that you can't force someone to carry out a suggestion.
Yeah.
So you can't be made to do something that you don't want to do. in
Yeah.
hypnosis. I'm going to go find the very specific article because I'm big on science when it comes to that. I've seen my own experiences where I went to a stage show and a woman took herself out of hypnosis because she didn't agree with the direction that the stage hypnotist took what they were going to do next.
Wow.
And she was just like, she sat straight up. And my husband's like, what happened? I'm like, well, he just gave everyone on stage a suggestion to help the person next to them put their suntan lotion on. The minute a stranger touched her, she didn't consent to that. She was done. And she did.
Mm.
She sat bolt upright. They escorted her off the stage because she would not go back into hypnosis. He attempted to get her to go in again, and she would not. He totally lost her trust.
Yeah. Wow.
So we
So,
have a protective part of the mind. We have to feel safe.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, quickly, I'm just curious when people do this research, and we'll give your information. So, if people want to work with you,
Mhm.
is there like a database or like initials after that you can say, oh, this person is certified or is legit? Because people could just say, hey, I'm a hip.
So that's something I'm actually working on behind the scenes right now, and that's not ready to be fully revealed yet. But look, just ask someone, where were you certified and
Hmm.
what organization are you a member of? Because if they're still a current member, that tells you that they're keeping up. Look for independent organizations like the National Guild of Hypnotists, um, the International Council on the Board Certification of Hypnotists. There are some that are related just to clinical people. Um, just ask them where they went to school. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I think this is worth noting. And I'm going to say this from a place of complete humbleness and kind of understanding. There are some people out there who teach people that if a client asks you what your credentials, a potential client asks you what your credentials are, and they need to know all of that, then they're probably going to be a bad fit client. And that's not true. If you are going to work with a hypnotist, and this is where my opinion has shifted greatly, your mind is who you are.
Exactly.
Your mind is who you are. You deserve to know where someone trained and who they're certified with. And if someone's unwilling to tell you that, even if they've got 10 certifications on the wall, if they're not confident enough to tell you that, if they're not comfortable enough to answer that question, then for me personally, there's a dirt dauber. That's good medicine. He's on my hand.
Yeah. What is
Um,
it? It's interesting.
it's called a dirt dauber. They're mud
Oh,
wasps.
a dirt
Um,
dauber.
yeah, that's why I call him down south. But he's a mud wasp.
Oh, a mud
So
wasp.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I mean, if you're not comfortable with someone not being comfortable telling you where they trained or where they certified, follow that feeling. If it doesn't bother you and the connection between the two of you is good enough that it doesn't matter, that's okay too.
Well, that's just called doing due diligence, quite
It's
honestly.
just due
It's
diligence.
due
Yeah.
diligence. I mean, if you hire a real estate broker, are you just going to the
Yep.
first person, aren't you going to look at references and look at their
Yeah.
certification and do they really have their license? You get a new broker,
Yeah.
whatever it is, you're going to do your
Well,
due
some
diligence.
people are truly nervous. They've a lot of people who come to hypnosis, and this is one of the things I want to see change. A lot of people, when they come to hypnosis, they've tried everything else. They put a lot of money into everything else. They've been told things would work and things didn't work. And so, to some degree, they're doubting their own decision. They're doubting if it can work and they're just really not sure. And then there are some people who are actually afraid of change. And these are the people
Mhm.
that they're actually talking about, but they will blanket it across everything. There are some people who are so afraid of change, they're looking for a reason to say no
Right.
subconsciously. They're not even aware of it. So
Yeah.
it can be more of a defensive posture. And I understand that. I mean, there is a modality and there is someone out there for everyone. You just have to find what's right for you.
Yeah. Well, it's completely understandable. To make a change takes bravery.
It does.
To going into the unknown, it takes absolute bravery because guess what you're doing? You're pivoting 180 degrees. You're going in the other direction of where you don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
a lot of times you have to hit super absolute rock bottom to say, I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you for clarifying that. So many great nuggets. I know we're going to have to do another follow up because you have so many amazing stories.
We
I,
definitely can. You anytime. I've
And
enjoyed it.
so I know you have this new program, or maybe it's not new, but pull up a chair. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So pull up a chair is something that's just fun that I like
Mm-hmm.
to do. I was doing it several years ago, and then I had a sales coach say, "Oh, you need to take it into a Facebook group and make it a lead generation thing," and took all the fun out of it. And when I closed the Facebook group, I didn't continue it. So pull up a chair is 30 minutes every Wednesday. It's just a quick Q&A. If you have a question about hypnosis, you can ask. You have a
Mm-hmm.
question about hypnosis training, you can ask. I talk about money mindset, manifestation, spirituality, just whatever someone brings to the table. And like the group who showed up yesterday found out there were some things I was saying I don't know too, not because I don't have an opinion, but when you
Mm-hmm.
start, especially when you start talking about spiritual topics, if you don't know, then it's just best to say, I don't know, than to
Yes.
guess and put something out and send somebody on the wrong path. So we had a lot of fun yesterday.
Oh, that's great. Any other programs that you have coming out, or classes, or
Yeah.
certifications?
So if someone is interested, if you're like, wow, maybe I might would want to be a hypnotist, but I'm not sure. Or maybe you're thinking in hypnosis for yourself, but you really want to understand more like what really is hypnosis. On August 29th and 30th, I
Mm-hmm.
have Hypnosis Secrets Unlocked coming up.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 full days. It's a Saturday and a Sunday, and it's only $97. It really should be a lot more than that, but I take people through hypnosis, how the identity is formed, and we do some identity exercises, and we talk about how emotions drive our behavior so that you have a deeper level of awareness. And then at the end of the 2 days, I guide everyone into hypnosis so that you have the opportunity to work on your identity for yourself based on what we did during the weekend. And if you want to, you can go into a breakout room with a practice partner and you can actually hypnotize someone else so you can see that there's nothing magical or weird about it. It's just following instructions and anybody can do it.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And so to sign up for that, do they go to your Instagram or Facebook or
Um,
website?
the place would be go to Instagram and
Mhm.
go to the link in my bio. It's Hypnosis Secrets Unlocked. We're not
Beautiful.
actually actively promoting it yet, but the link is there to sign up for August 29th and 30th.
Great. And then if somebody wants to work with you directly, same thing, go to Instagram or
Yeah, go to Instagram. All of the links are there to
okay.
privately work with me or to try out one of the master classes that's available.
And what is your
And we'll
Instagram?
see.
We'll have everything in the show notes,
Yeah,
but
it's at
Mhm.
penny.chiasson. She ass on. It's the easy way to remember how to spell it.
Che ass on. I love that.
There's a story
Oh,
there, but we're going to leave it be.
we have to keep something for next time, right? We can't do
Yes,
it.
we
We
do.
can't. It's like visiting the amusement park. I'm sorry, we can't do all the rides. We got to keep something for.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure,
Oh my
Kimberly. Thank you
gosh,
so
so
much for
fun.
having me on.
I know. What a beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners. And we'll have everything in the show notes if you want to work with Penny at her upcoming program. That sounds awesome. August 29th and 30th, or pull up a chair. So many beautiful options. And thank you for your vulnerability and sharing your beautiful stories with your family. And I'm so excited for all the deep work you've done. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.